Captain Jake Morrison stood at the bridge window of the cargo ship Perseverance, watching Mars grow larger in the distance. The red planet looked peaceful from here, just a rust-colored ball floating in the black of space. He had seen Mars from this view hundreds of times, but today felt different. Today marked exactly 1 year since he made his promise. No more trouble. No more dangerous missions. No more being the hero. Jake touched the small photo taped to the control panel. His wife, Sarah, smiled back at him from the picture, her blonde, hair catching sunlight from their old house on Earth. She had been gone for 3 years now, but he still talked to her picture every day. "Just cargo runs from now on," he whispered to the photo. "Safe and boring, just like you wanted." The bridge door slid open with a soft hiss. Emma Rodriguez walked in carrying a steaming cup of coffee and a data pad. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and grease stains on her blue jumpsuit showed she had been working in the engine room. "Morning, Captain," Emma said with a cheerful smile. "I finished checking all the systems. Everything looks good for our approach to Mars." Jake turned away from the window. Emma was his chief engineer and the best mechanic he had ever worked with. She could fix anything with spare parts and determination. More importantly, she kept the crew's spirits up with her endless optimism. "How are our passengers doing?" Jake asked. "Dr. Williams is keeping Ambassador Kethler comfortable in the guest quarters," Emma replied. "Though I think our alien friend is getting nervous about the trip." Jake nodded. Ambassador Kethler was their most important passenger ever. The reptilian alien represented the Hegemony Council, a group of alien species that controlled most of the galaxy. This was the first time they had agreed to serious peace talks with humans. The ambassador had specifically requested human transport for the journey to Mars. He said the Hegemony Council wanted to see if humans could be trusted with important tasks. Jake felt the weight of that responsibility every day. Tom Bradley's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. "Captain, could you come to the navigation station? I want to show you our route." Jake walked across the bridge to where Tom sat surrounded by glowing screens and star charts. The young man was only 25, but he was the best navigator Jake had ever seen. Tom could plot a course through an asteroid field blindfolded. "What do you have for me, Tom?" Jake asked. Tom pointed to a 3-dimensional map of Mars floating above his console. Red areas marked dangerous zones around the planet. The largest red zone covered nearly a quarter of Mars's northern hemisphere. "This is our standard approach route," Tom said, tracing a blue line around the planet. "It takes us safely around all the electromagnetic storm areas and the Crimson Wastes." Jake studied the map. The Crimson Wastes were Mars' most dangerous region. Massive sand dunes shifted constantly, and electromagnetic storms could destroy a ship's electronics in minutes. Dozens of vessels had been lost there over the years. "Good," Jake said. "We stay far away from any trouble spots." "Actually," Tom continued, "there is a shorter route." He highlighted a yellow line that cut closer to the red zones. "This path would save us 8 hours of travel time. We would still be completely safe, just skirting the outer edge of the storm areas." Jake shook his head immediately. "No shortcuts. We take the long way around." Tom looked confused. "But Captain, the shorter route is still well within safety limits. The ambassador is worried about reaching the peace talks on time." "I said no," Jake replied firmly. "We stick to the safest route possible." Emma gave Jake a curious look but said nothing. She had been with him long enough to know about his new cautious approach to everything. After 20 years of military service and countless dangerous missions, Jake had changed completely. The bridge door opened again and Lisa Chen walked in. She was the ship's security chief and a former Marine like Jake. Lisa was tough as nails and completely loyal to her crew. Her black hair was cut short in military style, and she moved with the confident walk of someone who had seen real combat. "Captain," Lisa said, "I just finished my security sweep. All cargo is properly secured, and our weapon systems are powered down as requested by the Hegemony Council." Jake nodded. The aliens had insisted that the human ship carry no active weapons during the diplomatic mission. It was a sign of trust, but it also meant they would be defenseless if something went wrong. "Any problems with our passenger?" Jake asked. "Ambassador Kethler seems uncomfortable," Lisa replied. "He keeps asking about our safety procedures and emergency plans. I think he's more nervous about flying with humans than he wants to admit." Dr. Mark Williams entered the bridge at that moment, as if summoned by their conversation. The ship's doctor was a calm, thoughtful man in his 50s. His gray hair and gentle manner made him perfect for dealing with nervous passengers. "Speaking of our ambassador," Dr. Williams said, "he would like to speak with you, Captain. He has some concerns about our arrival schedule." Jake sighed. He had been expecting this conversation. "I'll go talk to him in a few minutes." Emma looked at the navigation display and then at Jake. "You know, Captain, we really could take the shorter route safely. The weather reports show clear conditions for the next 48 hours. "Emma," Jake said quietly, "I made a promise. No unnecessary risks. We deliver our cargo safely and go home. That's it." Tom and Emma exchanged glances. They had heard stories about Captain Morrison's military career. He had been known for taking impossible missions and finding ways to succeed against all odds. His crew had followed him through battles that should have killed them all. But something had changed after his wife died. The fearless captain who once flew rescue missions through enemy fire now refused to take even the smallest calculated risk. Lisa understood better than the others. She had lost people too. Sometimes the weight of command became too heavy to carry. "Sir," Tom said carefully, "the crew trusts your judgment completely. If you say we take the long route, that's what we do." Jake felt a moment of gratitude for his crew. They were good people who deserved a captain who would keep them safe. That was exactly what he planned to do. "Set course for the standard approach," Jake ordered. "I want us in orbit around Mars in 36 hours, with time to spare." As Tom began inputting the navigation coordinates, Jake looked out at Mars again. The red planet seemed peaceful and predictable from here. Soon they would deliver their cargo to New Phoenix Colony, complete their diplomatic mission, and head home. Simple and safe. Jake touched his wife's photo one more time. "No heroes this trip," he whispered. "Just honest work." He had no way of knowing that Mars had other plans for the Perseverance and her crew. Sometimes trouble finds you, no matter how hard you try to avoid it. And sometimes being human means you cannot run away from who you really are. The ship continued toward Mars, carrying its crew deeper into a destiny none of them could imagine. 3 days later, Tom Bradley stared at his navigation screens in confusion. The numbers kept changing every few minutes, and none of them made sense anymore. He rubbed his tired eyes and checked the readings again. "Captain," Tom called across the bridge. "We have a problem." Jake Morrison walked over from his command chair, coffee mug in hand. "What kind of problem?" "The navigation system is acting crazy," Tom explained, pointing at the flickering displays. "Our position keeps jumping around. 1 minute we're on course, the next minute it says we're 50,000 kilometers off target." Emma Rodriguez looked up from her engineering station. "I'm seeing the same thing down in the engine room. All our electronic systems are getting interference from somewhere." Jake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "What's causing it?" Tom pulled up a solar activity report on his screen. "There was a massive solar flare yesterday, much bigger than predicted. It's causing electromagnetic storms throughout the inner solar system." Dr. Williams' voice came over the intercom from the medical bay. "Captain, Ambassador Kethler is asking about our arrival time. He seems very worried about being late for the peace negotiations." Jake looked at the swirling chaos on Tom's navigation display. Their safe, predictable cargo run was becoming complicated fast. "How bad is the interference?" Jake asked. Emma ran diagnostics on her console. "It's getting worse as we approach Mars. The planet's magnetic field is amplifying the solar storm effects. I'm having trouble keeping our engines stable. Tom tried to recalibrate his instruments, but the readings kept shifting. Captain, I'm not sure I can navigate us to the standard orbital approach. The interference is too strong. Jake stared at the tactical display showing Mars and the surrounding space. Their original route would take them through the worst of the electromagnetic disturbance. The interference could damage their systems or even knock out their engines completely. What are our options? Jake asked. Tom highlighted different possible routes on his screen. We could wait here until the storm passes, but that might take days. Ambassador Kethalar would miss his negotiations completely. What else? We could try pushing through on the original route, but I can't guarantee we'll make it safely with all this interference. Tom paused and then highlighted a third option. Or we could take a more direct path. It would mean flying closer to the eye. Crimson wastes, but we'd avoid the worst of the electromagnetic storm. Jake's jaw tightened. The Crimson Wastes were exactly the kind of dangerous area he had sworn to avoid. How much closer? We'd stay at least 100 kilometers away from the actual danger zone, Tom assured him. It's still completely safe. We'd just be skirting the outer edge. Lisa Chen had been listening from her security station. Captain, what does our passenger say about the delay? Before Jake could answer, Dr. Williams appeared on the bridge. His usually calm face showed worry. Ambassador Kethalar is very concerned, Dr. Williams reported. He says the peace negotiations are scheduled to begin in exactly 48 hours. If he's not there, the Hegemony Council might interpret it as human unreliability. Emma looked up from her engineering console. Captain, I hate to say this, but the electromagnetic interference is getting stronger. If we wait much longer, we might not be able to navigate at all. Jake walked to the main viewing window and stared out at Mars. The red planet looked the same as always, but he knew dangerous storms were raging in the space around it. His promise to his wife echoed in his mind. No unnecessary risks. But was this risk unnecessary? The future relationship between humans and aliens might depend on getting Ambassador Kethalar to his meeting on time. Tom studied his screens again. Captain, the direct route really is safe. We'd be flying through empty space just closer to the Crimson Wastes than usual. The electromagnetic readings show clear conditions along that path. For how long? Jake asked. The weather satellites predict stable conditions for at least 12 hours. That's more than enough time to reach Mars orbit. Lisa walked over to join the discussion. Sir, I've been monitoring communications from other ships in the area. 3 freighters have already been forced to turn back because of navigation failures. The standard routes are becoming impossible. Jake felt trapped between his promise and his duty. He had sworn to avoid dangerous situations, but he also had responsibilities to his crew and passenger. Emma left her station and approached Jake. Captain, I know you're worried about taking risks, but sometimes the biggest risk is doing nothing. Jake looked at his chief engineer. Emma had been with him for 5 years. She had seen him change from a bold military officer to an overly cautious cargo captain. Her opinion mattered to him. The direct route would get us to Mars in 18 hours, Tom added. Ambassador Kethalar would have plenty of time for his negotiations. Dr. Williams nodded. The ambassador did mention that failure to reach the talks could be interpreted as an insult by the Hegemony Council. The consequences could be severe for Earth. Jake closed his eyes and thought about his wife. Sarah had always worried about his dangerous missions, but she had also understood duty and responsibility. She would want him to make the right choice, not just the safe choice. Show me the exact route, Jake said finally. Tom brought up a detailed navigation chart. The proposed path curved around the outer edge of the Crimson Wastes, staying in safe space but cutting their travel time significantly. We'd pass within 100 kilometers of the storm boundary, Tom explained, but all our sensors show stable conditions. No electromagnetic anomalies, no magnetic storms. Emma checked her engineering displays. Our engines can handle the route, easily. And if anything starts to go wrong, we can change course immediately. Jake studied the navigation chart for a long moment. The route looked safe enough. They would stay well away from the actual danger zones. It was a reasonable compromise between caution and necessity. All right, Jake decided. We take the direct route, but I want constant monitoring of all systems. If anything starts to look dangerous, we change course immediately. Tom smiled with relief. Yes, sir. Plotting the new course now. Emma hurried back to her engineering station. I'll keep the engines ready for emergency maneuvers. Lisa nodded approvingly. I'll inform Ambassador Kethlar that we're back on schedule. As Tom input the new navigation coordinates, Jake felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He was breaking his promise about avoiding risks, but sometimes being a captain meant making hard choices. Course laid in, Captain, Tom reported. We'll reach Mars orbit in 17 hours and 30 minutes. Take us in, Jake ordered. The Perseverance changed direction, heading toward Mars on a path that would take them closer to danger than Jake had wanted to go. He told himself it was still safe, still within acceptable limits. Jake had no way of knowing that space weather predictions could be wrong. He didn't know that electromagnetic storms in the Crimson Wastes followed no predictable patterns. Most importantly, he couldn't see the massive storm system building just beyond Mars's horizon, waiting to drag his ship into the planet's most treacherous region. Sometimes the universe has plans that no amount of caution can avoid. The first warning came at 0347 hours. Tom Bradley was dozing at his navigation station when every alarm on the bridge started screaming at once. Red lights flashed across his displays as the ship lurched violently to one side. Captain to the bridge, Tom shouted into his communicator as he fought to understand what was happening. Jake Morrison burst through the bridge door, still pulling on his uniform jacket. Report. Massive electromagnetic spike, Tom said, his fingers flying over the controls. It came out of nowhere. Our navigation systems are completely scrambled. Emma Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, we just lost main engine control. Something is pulling us off course. Jake grabbed the command chair as the ship shook again. Through the main viewing window, he could see Mars much closer than it should be. Worst of all, he could see swirling clouds of red dust filling the space ahead of them. Tom, get us away from that storm, Jake ordered. I'm trying, sir, but the controls aren't responding properly. Tom's voice was tight with stress. The electromagnetic interference is 10 times stronger than predicted. Lisa Chen ran onto the bridge, her security uniform only half fastened. Captain, what's our status? We're being pulled into the Crimson Wastes, Jake said grimly. The electromagnetic anomaly is stronger than anything on record. Dr. Williams appeared behind Lisa, looking concerned. Ambassador Kethlar is asking what's happening. The artificial gravity fluctuations are making him sick. Jake stared at the growing dust storm ahead of them. This was exactly what he had tried to avoid. His promise to stay out of trouble was being shattered by forces beyond his control. Emma, can you give me emergency power to the engines? Jake called down to engineering. I'm trying, Captain, but whatever is pulling us is incredibly strong. It's like we're caught in a magnetic tractor beam. The ship lurched forward suddenly, and everyone on the bridge grabbed onto something solid. The dust storm was much closer now, and Jake could see massive dunes of red sand stretching in all directions. Tom worked frantically at his station. Captain, I'm reading magnetic field strengths that shouldn't be possible. The entire region ahead of us is charged like a giant electromagnet. How did the weather satellites miss this? Lisa demanded. The storm must have developed after we changed course, Tom replied. These magnetic anomalies can appear in minutes and last for days. The Perseverance shuddered as it entered the outer edge of the dust storm. Visibility through the windows dropped to almost nothing as red particles pelted the hull like bullets. Emma's voice came over the intercom again, barely audible through static. Captain, I've lost all engine control. We're flying blind and powerless. Jake felt ice in his veins. This was his worst nightmare coming true. He had broken his promise to avoid danger, and now his crew was paying the price. Tom, can you see anything on sensors? Barely, sir. The electromagnetic interference is jamming everything. But I'm detecting something massive directly ahead. Jake squinted through the swirling dust outside. Slowly, the outline of an enormous sand dune became visible through the storm. The ship was heading straight for it at dangerous speed. "Brace for impact!" Jake shouted. The Perseverance slammed into the dune with tremendous force. Jake was thrown against his command chair as the ship bounced and rolled. Emergency lights flickered on as the main power systems failed. But instead of stopping, the ship kept moving. Jake realized with horror that they were sinking into the dune instead of crashing on top of it. "What's happening?" Lisa called out, pulling herself up from the floor. Tom checked his instruments with shaking hands. "The sand isn't normal sand. It's made of ferromagnetic particles. The electromagnetic field is holding it in a liquid state like quicksand." Emma's voice crackled over the damaged intercom. "Captain, we're sinking at about 2 meters per hour. At this rate, the hull will breach in 18 hours. Jake felt the ship settle deeper into the strange sand. Through the windows, all he could see was red dust pressed against the glass. They were trapped in the most dangerous region of Mars, with no way to call for help. Dr. Williams made his way carefully across the tilted bridge. "Captain, I need to tell you something about Ambassador Kethlar. He wasn't completely honest about why he chose human transport." Jake looked at the doctor with tired eyes. "What do you mean?" "The peace negotiations aren't just diplomatic talks. They're humanity's final chance to prove we deserve a place in the galactic community. The Hegemony Council has been watching human expansion with growing concern." Lisa stood up slowly, favoring her left leg. "Concern about what?" Dr. Williams looked uncomfortable. "About human unpredictability and aggression. Many alien species want to contain humanity before we become a threat. The ambassador's mission was to determine if humans can be trusted." Jake felt the weight of the situation crush down on him. Not only was his crew trapped and dying, but the failure of this mission could mean war between Earth and advanced alien civilizations. "So if we don't get the ambassador to his meeting," Jake began, "the Hegemony Council might decide that humans are too dangerous to exist," Dr. Williams finished. Tom looked up from his damaged console. "Captain, I'm not getting any response from our emergency beacon. The electromagnetic interference is blocking all communications." Emma's voice came through the static again. "Hull integrity is holding for now, but we're still sinking. I estimate 16 hours before we reach critical depth." Jake walked to the viewing window and pressed his hand against the glass. Outside, red sand pressed back like a living thing trying to swallow their ship. His promise to avoid trouble seemed like a joke now. Trouble had found them anyway, but as he looked around at his crew, Jake saw something that reminded him why he had become a captain in the first place. Tom was still trying to fix the communications. Lisa was checking on injured crew members despite her own hurt leg. Emma was working desperately to keep them alive from the engine room. They weren't giving up. Even facing impossible odds, his crew was fighting to survive. Ambassador Kethlar appeared at the bridge entrance, moving carefully on unsteady reptilian legs. His scaled face showed fear, but also something else. Curiosity. "Captain Morrison," the ambassador said in his precise English, "what are your plans for escape?" Jake looked at the alien diplomat, then at his crew, then at the red sand pressing against their windows. His old military instincts began to stir, fighting against the caution that had controlled him for the past year. "We're going to get out of here," Jake said firmly. "All of us." For the first time since his wife died, Captain Jake Morrison began to think like the hero he used to be. Because sometimes being human means refusing to accept defeat, even when the universe itself seems determined to destroy you. The ship continued sinking into the magnetic sand. But something had changed on the bridge. The crew could feel it in their captain's voice. Jake Morrison was done running from trouble. Now trouble would have to deal with him. Jake Morrison stood in the center of the tilted bridge and looked at each member of his crew. The ship was sinking steadily into the magnetic sand, but for the first time in hours, he felt something other than despair. He felt the familiar fire of determination that had carried him through impossible missions before. "Listen up, everyone," Jake said in a clear, strong voice. "We're going to break this problem into pieces and solve each one. Tom, I need you to figure out how to get a message through this electromagnetic interference. Use whatever you can find." Tom. Bradley looked up from his damaged console. "Sir, the interference is blocking everything. Normal communications won't work." "Then we make abnormal communications work," Jake replied. "Think outside the box. What do we have on this ship that wasn't designed for communication but might work anyway?" Emma Rodriguez's voice came through the intercom with new energy. "Captain, if we're doing impossible things, I have an idea about the electromagnetic field trapping us." "Tell me," Jake said. "The terraforming equipment in our cargo bay includes powerful electromagnetic pulse generators. They're designed to break up magnetic rock formations on new colonies. If I can modify them and link them together, I might be able to create an EMP burst strong enough to disrupt the field holding us." Lisa Chen was checking her equipment at the security station. "What do you need from me, Captain?" "I need you to find a way to weaken the sand around the ship. We have mining charges in the cargo bay for the colony. Can you use them to break up the magnetic particles?" Lisa smiled grimly. "I'll need to go outside the ship to place them properly. It won't be safe." "Nothing we're doing is safe," Jake said. "But that's never stopped humans before." Dr. Williams stepped forward. "Captain, I believe I can help with the communication problem. Ambassador Kethlar has unique biological properties that might be useful." Jake turned to look at the reptilian diplomat, who had been listening quietly to their conversation. "Ambassador, are you willing to help us try something that has never been attempted before?" Kethlar studied Jake with his large, intelligent eyes. "Captain Morrison, in the past 3 hours I have watched your crew respond to certain death with creativity and determination. My species would have calculated the odds and prepared for honorable death. You are planning to cheat death instead." "That's what humans do," Jake said simply. "Then yes," Kethlar replied. "I will help you cheat death." Dr. Williams explained his idea. The ambassador's species evolved on a planet with natural electromagnetic fields. His nervous system can actually conduct and amplify electromagnetic signals. If Tom can build a transmitter, the ambassador could serve as a living antenna. Tom's eyes lit up with understanding. "That could work. I can use medical equipment to create a biocompatible transmitter. It would be dangerous for the ambassador, but it might punch through the interference." Jake felt the old familiar rush of a plan coming together against impossible odds. This was what he had missed during his year of playing it safe. This was what being human really meant. "All right, people, we have 15 hours before hull breach. Emma, start modifying that terraforming equipment. Tom, build your biotransmitter. Lisa, plan your demolition mission. Dr. Williams, make sure our ambassador stays healthy enough to help save all our lives." The crew scattered to their tasks with renewed energy. Jake remained on the bridge, coordinating their efforts and monitoring the ship's steady descent into the magnetic sand. Emma worked frantically in the cargo bay, tearing apart expensive terraforming equipment and rebuilding it into something it was never designed to be. The electromagnetic pulse generators were massive machines meant to operate from a safe distance. She was trying to turn them into a single, focused weapon that could fire from inside their trapped ship. "Captain," Emma reported over the intercom, "I'm having problems with the power requirements. The EMP burst I need would drain our entire energy reserve. We'd only get one shot, and if it doesn't work, we'll lose life support." How long do we have if we don't try? Jake asked. About 12 hours until the sand crushes our hull. Then we take the shot, Jake decided. One chance is better than no chance. Meanwhile, Tom was building the strangest communication device ever attempted. He combined medical sensors, navigation equipment, and emergency beacon components into a device that could interface with Ambassador Kethalar's nervous system. Ambassador, Tom explained. This device will use your bioelectric field to amplify our signal. It might be uncomfortable, and there could be some risk to your nervous system. Kethalar examined the jury-rigged equipment. Tom Bradley, my people have studied humans for decades. We have always wondered why you attempt impossible tasks. Now I begin to understand. You do not accept that anything is truly impossible. That's right, Tom said, making final adjustments to the device. We just haven't figured out how to do it yet. Lisa Chen prepared for the most dangerous mission of her life. She would have to leave the ship, wearing only a basic environment suit, and place explosive charges around their hull. The magnetic sand could shift at any time, crushing her instantly. Captain, Lisa reported, I've studied the sand patterns around the ship. If I can place charges at specific points, I might be able to create a temporary pocket of normal sand. It would give the rescue ships a clear approach vector. How temporary? Jake asked. Maybe 30 minutes before the magnetic field reasserts itself. Jake nodded. 30 minutes would have to be enough. As the hours passed, Jake watched his crew perform miracles of improvisation and determination. Emma's electromagnetic pulse device slowly took shape, a bizarre combination of terraforming equipment and ship's power systems. Tom's biotransmitter looked like something from a mad scientist's laboratory, but it was actually working in preliminary tests. Ambassador Kethalar observed everything with growing amazement. Captain Morrison, he said during a brief rest period, I must ask you something. Why are you all so calm about attempting the impossible? Jake thought about the question carefully. Ambassador, humans have a saying. When you're going through hell, keep going. We don't stop when things get impossible. We get more creative. But you could die in this attempt? We're going to die anyway if we don't try, Jake replied, so we might as well die trying to live. The ship continued sinking, now with only 8 hours before critical hull breach. But something had changed aboard the Perseverance. The crew was no longer just surviving. They were fighting back with every ounce of human stubbornness and ingenuity they possessed. Jake looked out at the red sand pressing against their windows and smiled for the first time in days. His promise to avoid trouble was completely broken now. But maybe that promise had been wrong from the beginning. Maybe being human meant running toward trouble when others needed you to solve it. With 6 hours remaining before hull breach, Emma Rodriguez made final adjustments to her electromagnetic pulse weapon. The device filled half the cargo bay, a maze of power cables, modified terraforming equipment, and backup generators all connected, in ways that violated every safety protocol she had ever learned. Captain, Emma called over the intercom, the EMP generator is ready, but I need to warn you about something. Jake Morrison hurried down to the cargo bay to see Emma's creation in person. The massive device hummed with barely contained energy, and warning lights flashed across its improvised control panel. What's the problem? Jake asked. This thing is basically a controlled explosion of electromagnetic energy, Emma explained. When it fires, it will disrupt the magnetic field around us, but it will also destroy most of our electronic systems. We'll be flying blind after we use it. Jake studied the weapon that might save their lives or kill them all. How blind? No navigation, no communications, no engine control. We'll have maybe 30 seconds of disrupted magnetic field before it reasserts itself. If the rescue ships aren't in exactly the right position, we'll sink even faster than before. And if we don't fire it? Emma checked her calculations again. We have 6 hours before the sand crushes our hull. This is our only chance. Jake nodded grimly. Then we take it. How long until you can fire? I need 3 more hours to build up sufficient charge. The power requirements are enormous. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Tom Bradley was conducting final tests of his biotransmitter with Ambassador Kethlar. The reptilian diplomat sat calmly in a chair surrounded by strange electronic equipment connected to sensors placed on his scaled skin. "Ambassador, are you ready for this?" Tom asked. Kethlar's large eyes showed no fear, only curiosity. "Tom, Bradley, I have been ready since you explained your plan. I find myself eager to experience human-style problem-solving firsthand." Tom activated the device, and immediately every screen on the bridge lit up with activity. The ambassador's bioelectric field was amplifying their signal by incredible amounts. "It's working," Tom said excitedly. "I'm getting a carrier wave through the electromagnetic interference. Now I need to encode our distress signal." Dr. Williams monitored the ambassador's vital signs carefully. "His nervous system is handling the load well, but I don't know how long he can maintain this level of bioelectric output." Tom began transmitting their emergency message, using Kethlar's amplified bioelectric field to punch through the interference that had blocked all previous attempts. The signal was crude and required enormous power, but it was getting through. "Captain," Tom called excitedly, "I'm receiving responses. Multiple ships are acknowledging our distress call." Jake felt a surge of hope. "Who's responding?" "I'm reading. At least 3 human rescue vessels, but there's something else. I'm detecting Hegemony Council ships as well. They're working together to coordinate a rescue operation." Ambassador Kethlar spoke without opening his eyes, his voice strained from the bioelectric effort. "The Hegemony Council monitors all diplomatic missions carefully. When my signal disappeared, they would have sent ships to investigate." "How long until they reach us?" Jake asked. Tom checked his readings. "The lead ships will be in position in 4 hours. But, Captain, there's a problem. The electromagnetic interference that's trapping us will also prevent them from getting close enough to help." Jake understood immediately. The same magnetic field that held their ship prisoner would damage any rescue vessel that tried to approach. The rescue ships would have to stay outside the danger zone. Lisa Chen's voice crackled over the intercom from the airlock. "Captain, I'm ready to begin the demolition mission, but I need to know exactly when the rescue ships will be in position." Jake looked at the timing. Emma needed 3 hours to charge her EMP weapon. The rescue ships would arrive in 4 hours. Lisa would need time to place her charges around the ship's hull. Everything had to be coordinated perfectly. "Lisa, you launch in 2 hours," Jake decided. "That gives you time to place the charges and get back inside before Emma fires the EMP." "Understood, Captain." For the next 2 hours, Jake watched his crew prepare for the most desperate rescue attempt in human history. Emma worked tirelessly to build up power for her electromagnetic pulse weapon. Tom maintained communication with the approaching rescue fleet, coordinating their approach through Ambassador Kethlar's bio-amplified transmissions. When the time came, Lisa Chen sealed herself into an environment suit and stepped through the airlock into the magnetic sand surrounding their ship. Jake watched through exterior cameras as she moved carefully around the hull, placing explosive charges at precise locations. "The sand feels like thick liquid," Lisa reported through her suit radio. "It's holding the charges in place, but I can feel the magnetic field trying to pull my tools away." "How much longer do you need?" Jake asked. 10 more minutes to place the last charges." Jake checked the countdown. Emma's EMP weapon would be ready to fire in 15 minutes. The rescue ships would be in position in 30 minutes. Everything depended on perfect timing. Lisa finished placing the explosives and started back toward the airlock. Halfway there, her radio transmission suddenly filled with static. "Lisa, report!" Jake called. "Captain," Lisa's voice was barely audible through interference. "Something's wrong. The magnetic field is getting stronger. My suit's electronics are failing." Jake watched the exterior cameras as Lisa struggled through the increasingly thick sand. Her movements were becoming slower as the magnetic field interfered with her suits. "Systems, I can see the airlock, Lisa reported, but my suit's propulsion is dead. I'm going to have to pull myself along the hull by hand. Emma's voice came over the intercom. Captain, the EMP weapon is almost ready, but if Lisa is still outside, when I fire it, the electromagnetic pulse could kill her. Jake faced an impossible choice. If they waited for Lisa, they might miss their window with the rescue ships. If they fired the EMP with Lisa outside, they might save the ship but lose their security chief. Lisa, how long do you need to reach? The airlock? At least 5 more minutes, Captain. The sand is getting thicker. Jake looked at the countdown timer. They had exactly 5 minutes before Emma needed to fire the EMP. The rescue ships would be in position in 20 minutes, and the window for escape would only last 30 minutes. Ambassador Kethlar opened his eyes and spoke weakly. Captain Morrison, this is the moment that will define not just our survival, but humanity's place in the galaxy. How you choose will be remembered. Jake stared at the exterior cameras showing Lisa fighting through the magnetic sand toward safety. His crew had followed him into this disaster because they trusted his judgment. Now he had to prove that trust was not misplaced. Emma, hold the firing sequence, Jake ordered. We wait for Lisa. Captain, if we miss the window with the rescue ships? We don't leave crew behind, Jake said firmly. That's what makes us human. Through the cameras, Jake watched Lisa pull herself along the ship's hull 1 hand holds at a time. The magnetic sand was getting thicker around her, and her suit's life support systems were failing, but she kept moving forward, refusing to give up, just like humans always do. Lisa Chen reached the airlock with 30 seconds to spare. Jake Morrison watched her stumble through the inner door, her environment suit sparking from electromagnetic damage, and felt a surge of pride in his crew. Emma, fire the EMP. Jake ordered. The entire ship shook as Emma's improvised weapon discharged. Every light on the bridge went out for 3 seconds, then emergency power kicked in. Through the windows, Jake could see the red sand around them shimmer and shift as the electromagnetic field was temporarily disrupted. It worked, Tom Bradley shouted from his dark console. The magnetic field is destabilizing. But their celebration was short-lived. Without main power, the ship began sinking faster into the sand. Captain, Emma called from the cargo bay, the EMP destroyed most of our systems just like I predicted. I have no engine control, no navigation, and no way to stop us from sinking. Jake felt the ship tilt at a steeper angle as they settled deeper into the sand. Through Tom's damaged communication system, he could hear rescue ships calling their position, but the crews were reporting the same problem. The destabilized magnetic field was still too dangerous for them to approach. Ambassador Kethlar spoke weakly from his chair, exhausted from hours of bioamplification. Captain Morrison, the rescue ships are saying they cannot get close enough to help. The magnetic interference is still too strong. Jake stared out at the swirling sand and realized they had solved one problem only to create another. The EMP had weakened their trap, but not enough to escape completely. Lisa Chen pulled off her damaged helmet and looked at Jake with determined eyes. Captain, I still have the detonator for the explosive charges. If I trigger them now, they might create a clear path through the sand. But you said that would only give us 30 minutes before the magnetic field reasserted itself, Jake replied. That's right. 30 minutes for the rescue ships to reach us and get everyone off this ship. Dr. Williams checked his readings on Ambassador Kethlar. The ambassador is too weak to maintain bioamplification much longer. We're losing communication with the rescue fleet. Jake felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. Every decision could mean life or death for his crew and passenger, but as he looked around the bridge, he saw something that reminded him why humans were special. Nobody was giving up. Even facing certain death, his crew was still looking for solutions. Tom, can you establish any communication with the rescue ships without the ambassador's help? Tom worked frantically at his partially functioning console. Maybe short-range radio, but only if they get within a few hundred meters of us. Emma, If we trigger Lisa's charges, how long do we have before the ship breaks apart completely? Emma's voice came through the damaged intercom. The explosions will destabilize the sand around us, but they'll also damage our hull. I'd say we have maybe 20 minutes before catastrophic structural failure. Jake made his decision. Lisa, trigger the charges. Tom, broadcast on all frequencies that we have a 20-minute window for rescue. Emma, prepare to evacuate all non-essential systems to life support. Lisa activated the detonator. A series of explosions shook the ship as the charges she had placed around the hull detonated simultaneously. The magnetic sand around them churned and shifted, creating pockets of normal space. It's working, Tom reported excitedly. I'm reading. Clear approach vectors for the rescue ships. Through the bridge windows, Jake could see the first rescue vessel approaching through the settling dust. It was a human ship, followed closely by 2 alien vessels with designs he had never seen before. But as the ships got closer, Jake realized they had another problem. The Perseverance was sinking so fast that normal rescue procedures wouldn't work. There wasn't enough time to evacuate everyone through standard airlocks. Captain, the lead rescue ship called over Tom's radio. We're reading massive structural instability in your vessel. We can't dock safely. Jake felt desperation creep in. They had come so far, solved so many impossible problems, only to fail. At the final step. That's when Emma Rodriguez did something that would be remembered in human history forever. Captain, Emma called over the intercom. I have an idea, but you're really not going to like it. Tell me, Jake said. I can reroute all remaining power through the ship's hull itself. It would turn the entire Perseverance into a giant electromagnetic catapult. We could launch the bridge section clear of the magnetic field. Jake understood immediately. That would destroy the ship completely. Yes, sir, and probably kill anyone who stayed behind to operate the catapult manually. Jake closed his eyes. Emma was offering to sacrifice herself to save the rest of them. There has to be another way, Jake said. Captain, Ambassador Kethler spoke up weakly. May I suggest something? Jake turned to the exhausted alien diplomat. In my species, we have a saying. When faced with certain death, wisdom lies in calculating the most honorable end. But I have learned something from humans today. You do not calculate honorable ends. You calculate impossible victories. Kethlar struggled to his feet. Your engineer Emma is correct about the electromagnetic catapult, but she is wrong about someone needing to stay behind. I can use my bioelectric field to trigger the catapult remotely, from the safety of the bridge section. Dr. Williams checked his instruments. Ambassador, the bioelectric load required for that would probably kill you. Kethlar looked at Dr. Williams with calm, intelligent eyes. Dr. Williams, if I die helping humans achieve the impossible, my people will know that. Humanity deserves their place in the galaxy. That knowledge is worth any price. Jake felt a surge of respect for the alien diplomat. Ambassador, I can't ask you to do that. You are not asking, Captain Morrison. I am volunteering. This is what humans would do in my place, is it not? Jake looked around at his crew. Tom was nodding grimly. Lisa stood at attention despite her injuries. Emma's voice came over the intercom with quiet determination. Captain, the ambassador is right. We can all survive this if we work together. Jake made his final decision as captain of the Perseverance. Do it. Emma began rerouting power through the ship's hull as the structure groaned and shook around them. Ambassador Kethlar placed his hands on Tom's modified biotransmitter, preparing for one final act of bioelectric amplification. All crew to the bridge section, Jake ordered. Prepare for emergency separation. The rescue ships moved into position as the Perseverance began its final transformation from cargo vessel to escape pod launcher. Jake watched through the windows as his ship prepared to destroy itself to save them all. Ready, Ambassador? Jake asked. Kethlar nodded weakly. Captain Morrison, when we meet again in safer circumstances, I will tell my people that humans are not to be feared. They are to be admired. Firing electromagnetic catapult in 3, 2, 1. The bridge section of the Perseverance shot away from the sinking ship like a bullet, propelled by Emma's impossible electromagnetic catapult. Jake watched through the rear window as his ship collapsed into the magnetic sand, its sacrifice complete. But they were alive. All of them. The rescue ships caught the bridge section and brought them safely aboard. As Jake stood in the rescue vessel's medical bay, watching Dr. Williams tend to Ambassador Kethalar's bioelectric exhaustion, he realized something important. His promise to avoid trouble had been impossible to keep from the beginning. Humans were trouble to the universe's status quo. They refused to accept limitations, turned disasters into opportunities, and made the impossible merely difficult. Tom approached Jake with a message from Earth. Captain, the peace negotiations were a complete success. Ambassador Kethalar's testimony about human resourcefulness convinced the Hegemony Council to offer us full membership in the galactic community. Jake smiled as he looked out at the stars. His wife would have been proud. He had kept the most important promise of all. He had brought everyone home. 3 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of a new ship, the Perseverance 2, reading a HFY message from Emma about their next assignment. The Outer Rim territories needed exploration, and several ships had gone missing. He should have refused. He should have chosen a safer assignment. Instead, Jake started planning their departure, because being human meant that when the galaxy called for help, you answered, and you made sure everyone came home safe, even if you had to break every rule in the book to do it.